then we started putting together some plans for the interior treatment, and it evolved quite a bit as we were going through. Like, this is actually an early drawing that we did that had some custom elements in there that we ended up switching up a little bit for the final result. But I kind of want to show the process because there's times where I will send a drawing or a rendering to someone, and it's not all the time where people are like, oh yes, 100%, that's what we're doing. I don't have any notes. Like, we're working on a project right now where two of them in the last couple of weeks where we sent our first renderings and they just said, yep, that's it, I don't have any notes. And like, that's rare, like usually there's iterations and feedback and things that we come back and forth with. But this was like our first concept that we were doing, where you had a mixed position here, the two windows that you just mentioned on the front wall, and we did some kind of trying to make it interesting by using some different shapes rather than just the traditional rectangular panels, which still ended up in your final result. Some details like that. We had the Flex 48s from Acoustical Fulfillment on the back wall there, which you see behind you. That's a product I designed and got a patent for. That's a diffuser when you want it to be, and an absorber when you want it to be. In your situation, we're using it as a diffuser, but also a bass trap on your back wall, because it absorbs low frequency energy really well. And having a combination of diffusion and bass trapping on the back wall is great in your type of situation.
With these things on the back wall, the Flex 48s, like, even aesthetically, it's still kind of one of my favorite parts about the studio, just because they look cool. Like, oh man, even if you didn't need them, they're still cool in the studio. But they work great. I'm so happy to have this diffusion. I never had diffusion in my other studio. I had nothing on the back wall, and it keeps everything so much tighter and balanced. And they're great. I love them.
Yeah, and they do look awesome. Plus, with that couch, I love the couch you picked. It's such a cool accent to the room.
Yes, that's where my wife came to the rescue with all this. Anything stylistically speaking was all her. She did a great job.
That's awesome. So then we took that drawing that I just showed you, and once we talked about it, we were like, okay, let's put that into our rendering software and kind of show you what the room might look like. And this was actually even before looking back at this drawing. We were going to do some soffit bass trapping in the room, but then we came across the need to encapsulate the piping, and so it became more of a drywalled soffit situation. But you can see bass trapping around here in the vertical corners, those trapezoid shaped panels. These were like a hybrid absorber / diffuser product that had perforated holes on them, and we'd used them in Crowder's studio and a few others, and we decided not to go with this option, but it was just kind of fun to be able to see. We even gave some plans on how those would be constructed, and then show in the back of the room with the Flex 48s there, and I don't know what your opinion is, but like the renderings for us just is such a game changer, and allowing people to like visualize like what it might look like.
Yeah, I was blown away when you sent this over. I was like, what in the world? I was confused at first, because I was like, did they made a whole replica of my room and exactly what it's gonna look like? So there was no guesswork through the whole thing. It was like spot on. I mean, if you look at this and you walk in this room, it's outside of some of the aesthetic changes, it looks the exact same. I mean, size, everything.
Yeah, it's a big part of I mean, honestly, it's the most fun part of the project, is doing these renderings, because it's something we're all visual people and we want to kind of see what it's gonna look like versus like just a 2D drawing. But it's really neat to get to this stage and start to put some things together. So we didn't do this exactly this way, but it helped inform us to what we ended up doing. And so we even went back in and started doing some more kind of rectangular shaped options, like kind of showing you that. And then we arrived at like, hey, why don't we, the first panels in the I think the front part of the room there being trapezoidal, and then switch to rectangular towards the back of the room. And you see those kind of rectangular boxes in these areas, those are areas that we ran electrical for, like LED lighting that you could have behind them, which I think really sets off the room. Like, do you use the lighting a lot?
I do actually. Anytime I have somebody new, or anytime I have a client come in, I'll sort of just have those on in the background. And I have everything on. The whole room's on 3 switches, so I have all of my LED on a switch, but then I have it on this controller too, so it's depending on the mood. So if I'm doing Star Wars, it's Darth Vader, we do red. Or if I'm doing, like, if I were working on Avatar or something, it would just go straight blue or something. So
you have to.
I'll do that every once in a while
to
too, just as like an inspiration thing. Exactly, yes.
One thing that's really cool about your space, which here I'm showing some photos now, is this just feels just so comfortable and also attainable, I think, for a lot of people. There's certainly studios that you see walkthroughs on our YouTube channel or on our website that's just like over the top and obviously huge budgets. But I think that your space is something that people can relate to. You got the nice natural light coming in through the front. You've got a bigger screen that you can view attached to that wall. We've got the trapezoid panels towards the front that are backlit, and then in the back we've got the wonderful Flex 48s and the corner bass trapping that you have in there. It's just a space that you walk in there, and like Oscar and I were there I don't know, a year or so ago, and filming the walkthrough, and you could picture yourself being in here for long hours without being overwhelmed by anything. So I think it's really, really awesome what you've created there. And it's something where it's a lot of work, a lot of investment up front, but you're gonna be using that space for years and years, I think it's important to really take the time and do it right one time, and then it's yours for as long as you live there. It's been like all those little things. I mean, if you're anybody who's out there making music, there are those little things in your studio that just bug you that you can't do anything about. And so I sort of had a list in my head of all of these things that always bothered me about the studio, and we just fixed them all. Like, I was coming from a basement with no windows, so I was literally vitamin D deficient. Like, blood tests, I needed to take vitamin D, and so there was an issue. I had like the light in my room, to give you the vitamin D light, and so I was like, okay, we need these windows here, and so now we get all this natural light. I have, woods to look at in the back, and remember, even those minute details like that, Gavin, I was like, well, how far away should the windows be so I can get my TV to be right there but see the yard? And we even took care of those kinds of things. And with you're probably going to talk about the HVAC stuff too, but those kinds of things as well. I mean, all those little details are just super important, because like anytime we get started on a new project, it's really like trying to put the puzzle pieces together. It's like you're just because every little thing that you decide impacts something else, and so it's always just a game of making sure that you're thinking it through, and I'm always thinking about, I'm not just solving this one problem that is in front of me. It's always how that if impacts everything else that I'm doing. And so it's like the kind of, you always talk about playing chess and thinking 3 moves ahead or 5 moves ahead. It's like that's usually what I'm doing when I'm designing a studio, is just making sure that we're not doing something that's then going to impact something else negatively as we go.